was blind, but now I can.
Yeah, calisthenics number 12. Yeah. Fly robotics. Bifocals, my only purpose is to feed the locals. I'm spreading love when I see you and gotta approach you. I see the goodness in you, I wouldn't John Wick you. I know you hustling for your family just to pay the fiscal. I see the God up in you, He bless your physical. While we navigating problems, the world is abysmal. Skip the one up, let's get it to the center. Your house is big as mine, we can always help each other. Affirmation smother, it ain't even cost me a dime to uplift my brother.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Vulnerability is the New Sexy, the safest space for Black men to be vulnerable and transparent. Listen, and speaking of that, we're going to have a real transparent conversation today. You know, the Black men are struggling, y'all. And, you know, the suicide rate for Black men is rising at an alarming rate. And it's time to start having some real heart-centered conversations around mental health and how the silence is breaking us, not only mentally, but also physically, the way it's harming our bodies. And we need to create spaces for Black men to become vulnerable and start healing. You know, I know personally, you know, I'm a survivor of suicide on multiple occasions. So I know what it is to feel like there is no hope and to not have a place to go. And I want to be able to help people understand what that is and understand that there is a light at the end of that thing. And it's very tough. It's a very, very tough conversation. And I was inspired to have this conversation off what I saw on the news from the young man, Kyren Lacy, who took his life. And I'm not here to debate wrong, right, or adjudicate any cases. I want to talk about the loss of hope that one feels when they don't feel like there's any other option but to take your own life. Because, you know, I've been at the end of that road before, when I lost my entire identity and didn't think there was another way. And it wasn't that I wasn't loved. It was just that I wasn't able to feel it. And now I'm in this space as a therapist, doing the work, talking to brothers, and I'm recognizing that a lot of us are just weary, and we're all struggling with our identities and our value and what we actually mean in the community, and we're not, and getting into spaces where we can be vulnerable and start healing. And I got some people here today with me, as you can see. We'll talk to Director Huey and Light Worker Wayne and Sister Sherry from Lighthouse Wellness and my friend Keisha Smith. You know, so who we you know, obviously, if you know me, you know, lately I was anxious before this episode because it has a little bit of personal nature. I don't even know how to start talking about my guy without getting emotional, but we're gonna get to it because I want to talk about my boy Keith, who was actually Keisha's son, who lost his life a little over a year ago. And we're going to talk about a little bit of that too. But I want everybody to first share kind of why you got into the space that you're in and the work that you're doing, and kind of explain some of the work that you're doing just in a light way. And like I just kind of did, you know, we know why I'm here. This has been my journey, my purpose. So Light Worker Wayne, if you don't mind kind of explaining kind of what it is you do, the kind of work that you're into right now, kind of how you got into space.
Yeah, it's definitely. And peace and blessings to everybody. If I could just say something before we begin, you know, anytime we dealing with difficult conversations, maybe we should just start with a deep breath first before we begin to unpack and have this dialogue.
Absolutely, bro. Let's do that.
Okay. Count 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in, hold it in for a little bit, then breathe out when you feel ready to. Okay. I got into this space after dealing with homelessness financial struggles, going through a divorce, my life turned upside down, and I thought about ending it right there. But God had other plans for me. Started seeing more signs and getting into the right space, and I found out that this was my purpose. I started mentoring children. Then that went to mentoring adults, young adults, seniors. Then I went and became a certified peer specialist in the state of Georgia. And from there on, pretty much met my brother, Director Huey G. We connected. We decided to form this foundation, this group, to do free monthly mental health events in Atlanta, because we just saw how important it is, the conversation with mental health, how it's still in our community. A lot of us still dismiss it. So we just decided to approach it in a different way, using visual representation of our everyday mental health challenges to get more people interest and active in it.
Appreciate that, brother. So you're actually doing like you're face to face with folks. You front face situation, okay? And you
face to face. Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry.
Go ahead, bro.
Doing face to face, facilitating group sessions. So, and also doing Zoom as well with some clients, some individuals.
Okay. Have some good results?
When it comes to the youth, one thing is, when I came in this field, I thought that I was going to stay with the youth, until the youth graduated and stuff like that. But you come to find out that, in a lot of these situations, right, sometimes the parent relocates. Sometimes it might be changes in their insurance, or I had incidents where, right, someone died in their family. I try to reconnect with the family. Then they just stop answering my calls. So I have had some victories, but I've also had some losses, and my expectations of it changed, because it wasn't me, being there for the whole totality of the child getting through high school. And sometimes, some individuals like, hey, we enjoyed your service for 4 years, and my child doesn't have this anymore, and they want to end it. So I had some positives, definitely had some positives, where some young men was able to learn some valuable lessons, how to control their behaviors, manage their ADHD, control their anger. So definitely had some achievements. And then others, it was more like, the client decided to move on, the client grown, or it was just a change in circumstances.
Man, okay. Director Huey, man, how did you get into this space, man? Tell me what it is that you do, brother.
All right, how you doing, man? I got into this space after going through my own mental health breakdown, but coming where I'm from, we don't know what a mental health breakdown is. I was so much grief. Got friends dying from gun violence. I have a grandmother died from dementia, all in the same year. Just a lot of back-to-back deaths, and mentally I couldn't handle everything, and I just wasn't there. I couldn't. I like to say my heart wasn't broken, my brain was broke. I felt like my brain needed to be healed, but I didn't know. So I had to go change my environment, move to LA. Got to LA. I wanted to put everything into film, because I felt like I need to use a lot of things that I went through and other people, and I want to put it on the screen so we can use that to break some of the generational silence. So if I can do it through film, art, we can use that to bridge the gap. And that's my why. That's my purpose. That's what drives me, is to get people like me who didn't know what, I don't know what a mental health breakdown is. I didn't know, what I'm saying? But if I can pull people who are similar to me, stop them while they're going, stop them before they go through it, or help them while they're going through it, then I feel like I'm living a purposeful life. So when I got with Wayne, and he seen what I was doing with the film and everything, we came together, started a organization out here in Atlanta. We do free monthly events for the community called Rewriting Our Mental Stories. And basically, you can rewrite your mental story. Whatever you're going through is not your end all and be all. And I just want to help break the silence and let growing up, we was taught not to say nothing, not to do nothing. And even when you look at a Michael Jordan meme, you can see Michael Jordan crying and what they do. They laugh at him all on the internet. So I just want to, provide a safe space, and that's what me and my brother been doing.
Yeah, they do, man. They do make it. They make fun of you for being vulnerable.
Right.
Your brother Tyrese broke down. They made fun of him. You know what I mean? Anytime that somebody's in the public breaking down, they make it seem like you're crazy or weak. Honestly, we're not talking about what a man might need.
Right.
Who he might need. But I'm glad your brother was able to, through your talent, Brother Wayne, help you put language to it so that y'all can produce. And we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the work y'all doing in a minute. So yeah, I appreciate you being here, bro.
Thank you.
Definitely.
All right, Sister Sherry, I don't want to tell your story, even though I probably could. Why don't you go ahead and tell us kind of how you got into this space and what's motivating you to do the work that you're doing?
Well, thanks for having me, Joe. I appreciate being here today. Oh man, what brought me here? Well, I was shoved into this space. I say that because I knew that I always had this natural inclination and this attraction to healing, to the healing space. But, coming from, growing up in the 80s with parents of a certain era, how does that translate into a vocation? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I had to get in a couple of boxes that were placed in front of me, if I'm quite honest, and I went on and lived my life. I found myself in a relationship with someone that I love deeply, and he had a whole lot of trauma, a whole lot of unpacked trauma. And he would share things with me that would make me shudder, but he would say it in such a cavalier way and kind of make a joke about it, right? Mm-hmm. And then, take a swig of his beer, right? And that swig and the subsequent swigs of beer and smoking led to his early death. So in 2015, he was diagnosed with gastroesophageal cancer, which is a cancer that's not really talked about, but it's really taken Black men out in incredible numbers. And it is a cancer that is linked to lifestyle, what you eat, how you process stress, how you metabolize your stress, and what you're drinking, right? And so shortly after his diagnosis in 2015, and let me give you a little background. I've always been a yogi. He wasn't. Every now and then he would entertain me and come to a yoga class. I would drink the green juice, right? I was vegan and he wasn't. And he would have his veggies with a side of ribs, right? But when he got that diagnosis, he was like, yo, whatever you're doing, I want to do it regularly. And when I beat this cancer, I want to go around the barbershops. And I want to share my story as cautionary tale to my brothers to shake, to reimagine the way that we're living, right? To let go of habits that we picked up when we didn't know better, right? When we were just trying to survive.
Yes.
But unfortunately, better didn't come for him. And once I got to a place where I could see through the grief, spirit would not let me sleep, literally would not let me sleep. And was like, you must move forward in this. And so within a year, I founded Lighthouse Wellness, which is a Texas-based 501c3 nonprofit that is mission to bridge the wellness accessibility gap for Black men. Let me say that again, to bridge the wellness accessibility gap for Black men, period. Not BIPOC, not men of color, but for Black men.
Come on.
All right. Since 2016, we have expanded our mission to include women, Black women, and our youth. Frederick Douglass said that it's easier to raise them well than to fix them when they're old.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. 100%.
Right? And so we're doing that with contemplative practices, asana, mindfulness-based movement in the form of like what we would consider Western yoga, meditation, opportunities for radical rest. So we host half-day to multi-day retreats specifically for Black men so that they can move outside of the white gaze, soften their bodies, and exhale.
That's right.
Right? And allow their nervous systems to regulate.
That's right. That's right. And I definitely appreciate the work you're doing. We're going to talk a little more about some of the things you've been up to later, because there are resources out there that you've put out there for Black men to access, and they're wonderful. So I want to make sure we highlight that as well.
Cool.
All right, Keisha, I don't want to tell your story either. So you have been motivated lately to talk about mental health, and I kind of want to give you an opportunity to tell your story and say why you've been motivated to talk about, especially in our young people.
Well, I sort of like Sherry was forced into this. I didn't want to have to be the one. I wanted Keith to be the one.
Keith,
That was my son, the one that passed away. I wanted him to tell his story. I wanted him to speak to the youth. I wanted him to help, but I'm the one filling those shoes for him. So it's definitely necessary. I don't know where I don't know if it's with, I know that it has something with our age gap and with their generation, how we were raised versus how we're trying to shelter them versus us. We were pretty much toughed it out.
Yeah.
I don't know, if that prepared them as much for life and what life can do and what life can bring. So when they are moving into adulthood, they're able to face whatever may come their way. But I truly believe that not only is this a natural thing, it's a spiritual thing.
Indeed.
And I believe that it needs to be handled on both perspectives.
Go deeper. What do you mean when you say that?
I think that it has something to do, first and foremost, having a relationship with Christ. Not saying that no one is exempt. We're still going to fight, but regardless, you having a relationship with him, you'll be able to push through. But I think it also goes deeper as well into generational curses, things is that as well. It has to be a root to the situation. That's how I think.
Yeah. And in the work that I do, I constantly preach that spirituality is important because it helps you be rooted in your purpose. And when you're rooted in your purpose, it's very difficult to get out of line with your value and who you are. And you have an understanding of why you are here and what you do. And that is very deeply rooted in spirituality, whether it's a relationship with Christ or wherever you have a relationship, wherever your higher power is or whatever, because you are rooted in spirituality. Purpose is everything, y'all. Purpose is everything.
Yeah.
I want to play a video about the brother Kyren. And again, I'm not interested in debating right, wrong, or any kind of legal aspects. I just want to talk about where it went, because like I said, I've been in a position where you completely lose hope and you feel like this is the only way. So I'm going to show this video and then we're going to come back on the other side and start to talk about it.
The victim saying that no one got shot. She's saying that someone he shot the gun and then left. NFL draft hopeful Kyren Lacy was found dead in North Harris County, sparking a conversation on mental health among his family, friends, and also fellow athletes. ABC 13's Chaz Miller is live this morning on FM 1960. It is off I-69 there in Humble with a timeline on what took place. Good morning to you, Chaz.
Samika, authorities do believe that Lacy took his own life. It all started Saturday with a series of events that happened in this area where we're standing this morning. Now, according to the Harris County Sheriff's Office, this is what they are telling us. They said that Lacy was arguing with a family member in this area and fired a gun into the ground. About 30 minutes later, he was spotted by a deputy constable who tried to stop him, but they say Lacy drove off and crashed several miles away on Aldine Westfield near the Hardy Toll Road. Deputies say he shot himself. They did find a gun in his vehicle. Now, in a statement on Facebook, his dad said in part that this will never get easier, but that the family will learn to live with it. He urged parents to pay attention to the mental health of their children. Texans wide receiver Tank Dell also weighed in, saying that mental health is real. Now, Lacy was scheduled to appear in front of a grand jury in Louisiana this morning because he was accused of killing a 78-year-old veteran in a crash. They say Lacy then left the scene. Obviously, that will not be taking place.
Sherry, I gotta know. Why are you experiencing this? If you're not, let me know. But why is mental health still so taboo in our community? Why are we not talking?
Shame. Shame, right? And the fear of becoming vulnerable, right? If I become undone, what next, right? Mm-hmm. You will be able to pull yourself back together if you allow, right? I remember the first time I saw my father cry was at my grandfather's funeral when we were sitting about 5 feet away from his casket. And I was holding my daughter, who was about 2 years old at the time, right? That was the first time. Wow. That was the first time that I ever seen my father express an emotion outside of anger or joy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to do with that, and he didn't either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what we lead with. We lead with the only emotion that we are taught is okay is anger. A lot of black men, I don't want to say all of us, but a lot of black men, we are taught that the only emotion that we can express is anger. When we're afraid, anger. When we're sad, anger. Whenever we feel disregarded, we're going to lead with anger. And that's just really, the anger is just silence. It's just silence. I'm curious, Wayne, what are you doing or what are you seeing? How do we help young boys express themselves before the pressure becomes too much, bro?
Okay. So I like what Mrs. Smith was talking about with the spirituality, whole health management, whatever your religious beliefs is, the physical, mental, spiritual. So how we address that, how I address that is I work on all three, right? I work on all three of the cores, but I address that to anytime you're talking about our young people, you got to enter their world. That's why I use the anime a lot, because that's what my generation grew up in, watching Goku, Dragon Ball Z. That's what a lot of these kids watch Naruto. A lot of these kids know about it, right? And if it's not the anime, the music, being able to be into the same stuff that they're into starts the conversation that helps build the rapport, that helps build the trust. And once that happens, they're more open, they're more willing to listen to what you have to say, and they're more trusting with that. So from that could serve as the ground, as the foundation, then to start working on the physical. Hey, if you did some exercise, right? Hey, we can do some exercise together. Then you work on the mental. Let's do some reflection. Let's do some, let's think about some past things that we did and ask yourself, did that serve you or didn't serve you? Did that cause the situation to be much of a stressful situation? Then we work on the spiritual, whatever faith, belief that they believe in. We do some meditation, do some prayers. So that whole health management and getting into what they're into has been one of my biggest, most effective ways to reach them. As long as they into music, as long as they into anime, I'm able to reach them. I'm full confident with that.
Okay. Yeah. As a longtime educator and also a therapist, bro, I wholeheartedly co-sign everything you just said. Let me just address this real quick. Storm, my website is in my square. When I'm gonna take this off, you can go on my website and book some time and we can have a conversation. It's free. So just if you really need help and you want to talk to somebody, go ahead and book some of my time and I'll talk to you. I'll be there. Okay.
May I offer something?
Sure.
Right. Is Storm thinking about harming herself?
Yeah. Let us know, Storm. Because if it's something urgent, then we,
Right.
Let's say, why are you asking that, Sherry? Why are you asking?
And first, let me say this: I'm not a therapist, right? I'm not a clinician, but I have gone through the mental health first aid, and just in this work that I've been doing for over a decade now, right? And when I said fear on both parts, right? Fear on the person who's listening, on the part of the person who's listening, and fear on the part of the person who's sharing, right? And so oftentimes we'll be in shared space with someone who's really struggling, right? And when I say really struggling, I mean on the precipice of life or death. But we won't ask that question, right? As the one who's listening, are you thinking about harming yourself, right? Because if they answer yes, then that requires the listener to take another step, right? And that means I'm not leaving your side until we get you some help.
Right.
Right? Real talk. I'm not love and light, right? No spiritual bypassing. We can't pray it away. Are you thinking about harming yourself in this moment? If the answer is yes, I'm sticking to you like glue until we get you some assistance. So when that sister just put in the chat, I need some help. Yo, now, right? It's possible that she needs something right now. And we as a community, we have to get really comfortable and step outside of ourselves. Are you thinking about harming yourself, right? It's kind of like the sex conversation, right? Within our community, right? We don't want to talk about sex with our kids because we don't want to implant the thought of them having sex. But guess what? We're all created as sexual beings. Right. So we're gonna let that go.
Yeah. And I agree with you, LJ. We can ask openly, but you can answer offline. The answer needs to be offline, but we got to ask openly because we don't know who's listening and who may need some help. You know what I mean? So go ahead.
If I could interject, they could call the they could call the crisis line 988 as well.
Right. Absolutely. Huey, man, let me ask you something, man. You talked about kind of the struggles that you were in growing up, and also in your adult life and how they led you to this space. Were you someone who was told to man up or stay strong when you were struggling?
Yes, man. I was always, even growing up or as a man doesn't cry. A man can't be weak. If you're in your neighborhood, you seem weak, then that's when you're tried or you're tested. So it's always, I gotta be strong. So I even created a company called Made Solid because I always knew I gotta be strong through whatever. And we all know the perception. If a woman see that you're weak, what does the man think? They're gonna use it against them. You know what I'm saying? If I open up to her about this, when she get mad at me, if I tell her about this, I'm going through this, I didn't have a father and all this. When she gets mad, it's gonna come right back. She's gonna use that back at me. So it was always, well, who can I talk to? I didn't know that. I thought that therapy or going on the couch was something that a white person has to do. Just growing up, not knowing that means I'm crazy. So if all these years go by, you building up, then after a while, it's just gonna explode.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, I know that path all the way too well, man. Like I said, I experienced some of that same stuff, and and not understanding that vulnerability is the key. I want to keep stressing that to everybody. That silence will break you, man. It will really, really break you. You got to find a way to say what it is that you need, and tell people that you're hurting, and find language. If you don't know the language, ask somebody for the language, that we can get you around or with some help. Because there is hope in every situation. There's hope in every situation.
And that's why I always like Wayne. When I met Wayne, it was good that he introduced me to some of the language. He showed me some of the things. Hey, now we check on each other. Hey man, how's your mental? Hey, hey, you know what, Wayne? I'm not today. I don't feel good. This what happened. That what happened. So the next day, I felt better. Like, dang, that felt good. To just tell him everything, and I can, I could call like trauma dumping or something. Getting all the stuff off, and it felt good to pass it on, even though he just listened, even if he had advice, he just sat down and just like, yeah, I feel you. You don't have to say nothing, but just having somebody to just listen made my day go, make me feel better. And, I could go about my day the next day feeling that weight lifted off of me.
Yeah, 100%. Community is so important, especially to Black men. I was talking to a brother earlier today about this very thing, as to how we don't really make friends if we didn't grow up with you. We don't make new friends. We're not really good at that. We're not talking. We're not gathering in communities the way that we should. And instead, we're looking to get our pain healed through the love of a woman or through some physical aggression. And it's just not the way. You're not doing it right, bro. You're not doing it right. Keisha, I gotta ask you, because you got 3 other sons. How are the conversations? Are they different? With your especially with your younger boys, about vulnerability, about talking, about being open. What have you been experiencing?
Yeah, conversation is wide open. You're gonna have to talk. You're definitely gonna have to talk to mommy. Now, mind you, though, the youngest still don't know. They know he's passed away, but they don't know how he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Still, so with that being said, I have them in counseling. They see their counselor every 2 weeks. Their school is fully aware of the circumstance and situation, so they know if they need to take a break, because they do get emotional. They allow them to do that, but it's definitely not saying that I wasn't like this with Keith, but when Keith was out of the house, he was out of the house. Yeah. So, but still, I talked to him every day. It wasn't like he was at home, but still talk to him every day. With them, I'm very attentive to what their concerns are, what's bothering them. I'm glad that they're using other emotions, saying that I'm frustrated, and not saying always that they're mad or whatever. They're using their emotions. They're able to speak on how they truly feel. And we do talk about it. I know with the year anniversary that just passed, we all sat back and reflected, and I had to ask my oldest how he was doing, and he's doing good, and he's not blocking it out, but definitely not sitting idle in the situation. He is doing things to make sure that his mental is good as well. So yes, I even had a conversation with DJ the other day. He experienced something at school, and I found out from the teacher, but he didn't let me know. And I just had to reassure him that, sweetie, you can tell me every and anything, and to talk about, when we talk about our day, I want to hear about everything. Mm-hmm. So we can work through whatever it may be. So
yeah,
each one of my kids are different. So I have to parent different,
Mm-hmm.
DJ is more of a sensitive he's more Kyren is Kyren. So I have to handle him differently as well. And I had to learn that as a parent. You know, it's not always just cookie cutter, you being the same parent for each individual child, not saying that any of my kids get favoritism or anything like that, but I have to parent them different.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm gonna follow up with this because I know that it's a question that annoys me. People, when we lose somebody this way, people always try to figure out what could have been done different or what they could have done differently. And I know you feel strongly about that. So I just kind of want to touch on that. Like, should we be trying to beat ourselves up, figuring out what we could have done differently?
Can I?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I'm gonna just say from my perspective, because I'm, battling with that.
I know.
It's always what could have been done different.
Yeah.
And that has been going through my mind. But also I look at the other side and say, Keisha, what else could you have done? Right. I know, and Joe, personally, what he was dealing with, how we were on top of him regards to, him getting help and seeking help and finding him help. But he had to also put in the work too. We could only lead him to a certain point, but yeah, that has definitely been something that I've been going back and forth with. Is there something that could have been done different?
Yeah, I know. And I think you want to say something, Wayne, before I make a point. Go ahead, Wayne.
I was saying that bargaining part is a natural part of the grieving. The first stage is the denial, then anger, then bargaining. That's what they call it. Where you're like, okay, if I was here or something different happened, and I think that's just a part of being a human. If you ask me, I think that's a typical, that's a normal course for us to think that, especially when we lose someone especially when we lost somebody, dear to us. And by all means, I haven't lost a child. I have a 10-year-old daughter. So I could sympathize with what Keisha is saying, but there's no way I could truly feel what she, is going through. And I just want to applaud you, Keisha, just the bravery, you coming up here and you sharing your story. I have a community partner that has a similar story that lost one of her sons to acts of deleting themselves. So I just wanted to provide that piece when it comes to the bargaining.
I appreciate it. Huey, man, I know you lost somebody to suicide, man. I want you to kind of answer that same question, bro. Do you struggle with that? What I could have done differently?
You know what? That's the biggest thing I struggle with. Once you said it, it hit me, because when I moved to LA, I moved away from Atlanta, trying to deal with my own thing. I kind of shut down a lot of people that were not in LA. People in Atlanta kind of like, for a second, I wasn't communicating with them. I wasn't, seeing what's going on, because my mental was so bad. I was trying to just, get a fresh start, change my environment, heal myself. But during that time, I'm not knowing one of my closest friends is going through this crazy divorce and all that. Normally, if I'm there, me and him, we talking every day, we meeting up, we encourage each other, motivate each other, until I get a call and I'm like, oh man. But what really hurt was, and 2 days before I got the call, I said, you know what, hey, let me check on one of my bros, let me check on him. Like, it just hit me saying, it's time for me to check on him. Then I didn't do it, then 2 days later, I get that call. That I really struggle with that a lot. And to this day, sometimes I'm like, dang, I wish I could have just checked on him. Maybe he would have told me going through, we could have talked it out. Maybe, I keep a lot of maybe. What if we would have talked? What if we would still been cool? What if I was in Atlanta? That wouldn't have happened. So I do struggle with that. To this day, I still struggle with that.
Yeah. And what, like Wayne was saying, man, we got to struggle with the human piece of that, man. You know, I had several conversations with Keisha's son, Keith, when it was dark. And I'm always questioning, you know, hey, did I say this or did I say that? You know, I mean, a couple of times we had to pull up and had those conversations and left there feeling like, you know, enough was done. So, but I know I have to struggle with that piece and knowing that I counsel people who go through this and knowing better than to know that there's really nothing that could have been done, but still struggling with the fact that I feel like something, that one thing I could have said or done to, you know, that would still have them here. So, and like I said, even getting ready to have this conversation, I've never really talked about him. So I'm anxious even having a conversation because it really still hurts me deeply that he's not here. Like I'm really struggling with it.
Yeah. Just to say that, it took a long time. Wayne, he didn't know the story because I didn't want to. A lot of stuff, a lot of that grief, I didn't want to talk about it a lot. You know, it took him a while. Wayne was like, "Whoa, I didn't even know that happened." Like because you, know, you don't want to talk about it. You can just that grief is real heavy. So I understand when you say you talk about it. Yeah.
It's very heavy, you know. Yeah, it's heavier when, like you saying, you saw pieces of the darkness. It just get heavier. So, but I want everybody to know, you know, people are going to do what they're going to do. It's really not about the way you love people. It's about their inability to feel that love that you're given. And I know it's the easy thing to do is to say, I could have loved him different, but it's just not real. It's not true. Sherry, you raising a son too, and you know your son has struggled with some things. I mean, you just told us that he lost his father. What are some of the things that you did when you saw, or some of the conversations you had when you saw your son have a decline in his mental health?
It started, you know, I was just thinking and taking a breath.
Okay, I'm with you. What you gotta do?
Because it's heavy, right? And Nikisha, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your story. I just remember staying as close as I could and just making myself available, right? To listen, not lecturing, not telling him what he needs to do, but affirming that what he was feeling was okay, right? And that the struggle that he was existing within was okay. And at the appropriate time, offering help, right? I know some really cool therapists that you may be able to connect with. What do you think about us finding you a therapist? You know, are you willing to try one session, right? But I listened to him with my whole self, if that makes sense. Not just with my ears, but with my eyes, you know, with my mama's spidey senses, my intuition, right? And just would get really still and observe him and allow myself to be that soft landing place for him. Even though I knew that it was above my pay grade, as I shared with you, right? But I wanted him to feel really comfortable. And I know like it was a crapshoot, right? There wasn't a guarantee that he was going to open up to me, but I was going to do everything that I could to leave myself just wide open where he would have no choice but to be drawn to me as a safe space.
Yes.
You know,
very heavy.
Yeah. When I launched Lighthouse Wellness, one of our first initiatives was yoga for Black men, Broga yoga for Black men. And, you know, people on the outside may say, yeah, that's just exercise. No, it's much deeper than that, right? It is a practice of becoming comfortable in your pain, becoming comfortable in the silence, right? And building mental resilience. right? When you come to the yoga mat, you can't run. All the little pieces of yourself, all the little compartmentalized pieces of yourself become reintegrated, right? And stuff comes up, right? Because they say that the tissues have issues, right? We store our stuff in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're moving on the mat and we're opening the hips and opening the heart, our heart actually opens, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've seen men break down and cry in a particular yoga pose,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know why,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't come over and hand them a tissue, right, which is a sign to pull it together.
Yeah.
I don't touch them, right? We allow it to happen, right? It's about allowing. There's a neuroanatomist out of Harvard University. Her name is Dr. Jill Taylor, and she talks about this. Talks about the connection between the physiological response in the body that is triggered by an emotion, right? And it only lasts 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's ecstasy or rage, 90 seconds. It lasts longer than 90 seconds when we ruminate and attach a story to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like someone does something to embarrass us, like, let's talk about like teenage boys, right? Someone says something, the room erupts in laughter, and he's embarrassed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, that feeling of embarrassment in his body lasts for 90 seconds. But there's a story now that he begins to attach to it. All my boys was looking at me, the cute girl in the room thinks that I'm weird, I'm a weirdo now, and how can I come back? And I can't believe that it happened to me. And right? And it goes on and on and on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just that lack of 90 seconds of being still, it could make the difference between life or death, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it is. And meanwhile, everybody else has moved on from that moment. But the story that he's attached to himself is long. I was sharing the other day how I was a junior in high school and how I almost got into a fight, and how that fight from junior high school led to a lot of my behavior as an adult. I didn't fight. I tried to stop the fight, and a lot of my boys was laughing at me. And so from then on out, any perceived disrespect got met with aggression for the rest of my life, until I figured it out somewhere probably 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I was getting thrown out of games, kicking garbage cans. I was making a damn fool of myself getting a fight. Keisha had to get jumping there a few times. It was embarrassing. And I was always embarrassed after. But so, yeah, what you're saying, Sherry, is 100% accurate. And it's important. I want to play some of y'all film, a clip from y'all film, if you don't mind. And I want you brothers to talk about it on the other side.
Our son is going to be a baller, just like his mom. Isn't that right, Tyler?
Yeah, Mom, I'm going to be a ball player
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? We got them scared.
After all these years, you still delusional, son.
Razor blade the heartstrings.
It's like with the championship.
Come on now.
Wrong.
Fix now.
A man has got to know his worth.
Maybe then you see it coming. I'm saying.
Amazing. All thanks to the great Tyrone. That buzzer beater was insane.
I'll admit, it was lucky, but a nice shot.
Lucky, really, babe? Come on now. It's genetics. That boy's going to be a baller just like his mother.
Well, I'm going to be the next Kobe.
You deserve it all. I can keep it 100 with you. Alright. Baby, someone like me.
In just that little clip, I see hypermasculinity. I see identity through sports, which a lot of our kids struggle with when the ball stops bouncing or whatever, struggling with that identity loss and not knowing what to do with themselves. I see a lot of things in that clip, but Huey, explain to me what we just watched, man. You on mute, brother.
A lot of unspoken trauma, grief. The son is the father is still grieving for the mother dying, and so when he's still grieving, the son is still trying to use inspiration what they were doing before the moment, before the mother passed, and the father he's in his own grieving thing, and he's not even caring about what the son doing no more. So the son is trying to carry on. The father's not paying no attention. That causes the son to get sad because he don't have his mother anymore, and it feels like he lost his mother and his daddy at the same time.
The whole movie, man. Let him go watch it now.
Okay.
I trying to get you to explain what you was trying to express, man. I like I said, Wayne, this is where you step in and give him the language, bro. Just explain what we was. He about to tell the whole movie, man.
yeah, he is.
We used to do movie breakdowns. Go ahead.
What are y'all trying to communicate with this, man?
We're trying to communicate about S awareness. I'm being careful with my word selection, about S awareness,
Suicide.
right? We're trying. Yeah.
We have to say.
I got you. So we're being mindful, putting it out there for our community to be more open when it comes to about suicide, when it comes to also dealing with our youth that their whole identity is in either sports or a craft or talent that they're in. And if that doesn't work out, because, majority of our youth, right? Majority of our youth is basketball or rap. So if those don't work out, a lot of them feels like, well, this is the end of the road. Like there's nothing else, when there's a plethora of different things, different talents, and their purpose may lie somewhere different. So my brother Huey and we promoted this just to get people to be more open, to have the conversation, to see more signs, to start thinking like, hey, okay, this and this and this happened. Let me ask him how he's feeling. Let me have more in-depth talks with our sons and our daughters as well.
Yes, man. Keisha, I want to ask you, what do you want to say to a young man or woman whose entire identity is wrapped up in their performance in their sport?
Well, that's a hard one. I can't speak for nobody else. I can just speak for me and mine, because everybody raised their kids different.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't raise my child to, that was his dream to go to the NFL. That was never my dream. I want you to do your best at what you do. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to pressure you to, if that's not what you want to do, that's not what you want to do. But just from a parent's perspective, I would hope that one is not putting that amount of pressure, on a child. I would hope so.
Well, listen.
I would hope so.
Right.
And
right.
Because I know, when certain circumstances and stuff, people are trying to get out of certain circumstances. I understand that, but that's a lot of pressure. I would just say that, if that is, use it as your gateway, but don't truly, I'm not saying depend on it, but, just use it as a stepping stone.
Right. But it's important to say, I think in this moment, hopefully somebody's listening. You were exactly right. I was front row. You didn't put any pressure on him to do anything, perform in any way. As a matter of fact, you made everything else but the sports important. But somehow he still put that pressure on himself. And we got to understand, where does that come from? These kids are doing it to themselves in a way. He felt the pressure to take
Well, I can attest to, when before having my youngest two, it was just me and Keith. And going through a marriage, getting a divorce. We can talk about this all day because it could be certain circumstances and situations that parents do that affect the kids
unknowingly.
And we can talk on this subject because one, I was in a relationship that I shouldn't have been in that affected him. And with that being said, he was concerned about me and his brothers. And when that situation went about its way, it was just that I just want to take care of my mom and my brothers.
Right.
Even though that was never a pressure that I put on. I just think that that's just something sometimes, a child wants to do, especially for their mother.
That's right. Right.
And, I can't say if I was in the same shoes, you want to do something for your parents. If you make it big, you want to do something for your loved ones and things of that nature. But I would just say that shouldn't be your main concern. Don't put that much pressure up on yourself to have that just riding on your shoulders that, if anything could happen that, especially with the circumstance with, how do you pronounce his name, Kyren? Lacy?
Oh, yeah. Kyren.
Yeah. I can just imagine with the circumstance and situation that happened, the amount of pressure that that led him. I don't know. I can't speak to it, but I can just assume.
Highly likely, right? Because he was on the verge of going to the
Right.
league and possibly have ruined that for himself
Right.
and his family.
Right. And I hope even with this baby that's out here in Frisco, the one that the situation that happened at the track meet.
Yeah.
That unfortunate situation that they get him some help.
That's right. Regardless
of the matter, because I can't imagine, the circumstance and what happened, how that is affecting him. And then, so.
Yeah. Because that's when I was at that lunch talking about that fight that I got into in high school. I was actually talking about that situation, and it's like, well, do we teach our kids to walk away from situations like that or stand on business? When you think about the aftermath of what he's going through, it's tough. I walked away and it followed me for the rest of my life. And but at the same time, if you don't walk away, it could have long-term effects in another way. I'm here, walking around free. He didn't walk away. He might not walk around free again. So all of that pressure goes into performance, all of it. When you're talking about the athlete feeling the pressure to perform, not only on the field, but perform for his family. I'm someone who was raised by a mother, and about 90% of the way that I showed up in the world was based on my mother and her life, and that's what sons do.
Yeah.
Of them. They look at their mother and like, how can I make this situation better for the first love of my life, the first woman in my life? And unknowingly, despite, like I said, a front row for Keisha, I saw, despite everything that she said, this young man still put this pressure on himself to perform, and the closer he got to it, the more pressure he felt.
I think it's very important. And I don't know what can be done, especially with student athletes. It's important for everybody. I'm not going to say just point out student athletes, but what I'm saying is that when you have kids that transition from high school to college, superstar in high school, they get to college, it's a business. They lie to you. the expectations, and then you realize that that's not what that is. We're once again, we probably could deal with rejection, but rejection is probably not something that this generation has really truly been exposed to. So they don't know how to handle rejection like that, how to maneuver like that. So I think it's a lot of things that need to be talked about from when these kids are transitioning from high school to college, both from the high school staffing when it comes to dealing with college, and then also when they get to college.
100%. I'm going to play another clip from y'all film, and then I want to get everybody's takeaways and final thoughts for the day, and then we wrap it up.
And with 1 minute left to go in the game, the score remains.
What the hell? Oh, what you doing?
Pops, you said you were going to come to my game.
I told you I'd be at the next one.
No, there is no next one. Tonight was the championship. Everybody's parents were there.
Well, you done lost your mind. Who the hell you think you yelling at?
Beautiful pass to the big man underneath. Puts it up off the glass, and it's in for two. Inbound pass to the other point guard, who is quickly surrounded by backcourt pressure.
You can spend hours watching other people play ball. Not your own son.
Look, man, I'm sorry for not showing up, all right? But you ain't no baller, no way, Ty.
And with one.
Yeah, that ties in everything that we talked about here. And like I said, we don't want to single out student athletes, but it is a very it's a problem. It's a specific problem. You know, when you're talking about the student athlete and their transition to college and to professional sports, having their value wrapped up, because you know the percentages of every people who make it to the next level is very low, and we're not even the percentages of people that actually transition from high school to college is very low, and we're not valuing that as you made it. You don't have to go to the next step to feel success. Your value should not be wrapped up in what's coming next. Every step that you take is valuable. But listen, Huey, man, give me your takeaways for tonight, your final thoughts, what you want to leave people with.
Yeah, man. First of all, I want to say thank you for everybody coming here, man. And my takeaways would be that silence is not strength, man. We need to start speaking up. We need to start checking in on our people. We need to stop looking at mental health as it's crazy. Stop looking at it like, how they look at the Joker, like, oh, you're wild. It's not crazy. You just need to speak. So we just need to keep creating safe spaces like how me and Wayne were doing. Keep talking to our kids and just open up, man. And just let's find a new perspective. Let's catch it, check it, and change it. You know what I'm saying? Hey. Change the generation, and just so we can break the cycle of not talking about it. So, yeah.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate your time tonight. I really do. Wayne, man, give us your takeaways, man. Your final thoughts. What you want to leave people with?
Something earlier that we talk about the community, the village coming together. So my takeaway from all this, and for everybody listening, is find your support group. The community, the village is called a support group. That's what we call it in mental health. It could be families, friends, somebody who groups of people that could check on you, people who could call on, people who you could talk to, people who actively listen. So that's my takeaway. Hey, if you look hesitant, on getting any type of counseling or anything dealing with mental health, at least get you a support group that you could talk to.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you sharing your time with us tonight, man. And tell everybody where they can find you and Huey, man, and the work that y'all doing in Atlanta, if you don't mind.
So you can find us at Rewriting Our Mental Stories. You can find me at Lightworker Wayne, my brother, Director Huey G, on IG, YouTube, Facebook as well. And if you're in Atlanta, each month we do a free monthly mental health event. We got one coming up April 19th at the West End Library, talking about dealing with stress when handling legal matters. So y'all feel free to subscribe to the vibe and comment down below and let us know how you feel inside when you see on our pages rewriting our mental stories, where you could be kept up to updates and everything.
Thank you, brother.
Yes.
My good sister Sherry, man, tell everybody what your final thoughts are, where they can find you, some of the things that you're doing, and what you want to leave people with.
Thanks, Joe. And it's been a pleasure to be on this panel. What comes to mind at the close of this conversation are the words of Lucille Clifton, our dear sister Lucille Clifton, and she has a poem that says, "Won't you celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and I have survived?" That is a true statement, right? If you're listening to this, whoever's listening to this and is struggling, celebrate that something has tried to not just take you out, but all of us, right? And maybe in this moment you feel weak and vulnerable, but when we come together, we are so strong. To my brother, light worker Wayne's point, we need community. Find your village. Find your village. And also, let's not choose permanent solutions to temporary problems or temporary circumstances. All right? Whether it's violence against others or violence against ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
90 seconds, y'all. 90 seconds. If you could just sit and breathe for 90 seconds, it can save your life. You can find me at Lighthouse Wellness. That's the name of the organization. That's LITE House Wellness on all social media platforms. We offer free group therapy for Black men every Sunday at 5 p.m. On Zoom. We've been able to, over 2 years, we've been able to impact the lives of over 300 Black men on 5 continents. We have weekly yoga in South Dallas on MLK. It's free. We're going to have a 6-week series of yoga at the Arboretum. And the Arboretum is just a beautiful place where Black men can come and frolic, y'all. That's the word of 2025. Frolic. And we're going to have a photographer out there capturing the Black men frolicking in the flowers and communing with one another.
That's right. That's right.
I love that yoga idea too. I love that, man.
You can find me on some of them Sundays too, man. I encourage all men to come out on Sunday and join the conversation. We are really working on, again, having community and healing. And like I said, you can catch me once a month or so in the group as well. But it's there every Sunday, except for this Sunday because it's Easter Sunday. All right, Keisha, what you got for us?
I would have to, just piggyback off of what Director Huey and like Worker Wayne had said, silence does not mean strength. And finding your community. You matter. You matter. That's it.
That's it. That's it. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Words. You definitely matter. And listen, I just want everybody to know, hey, grief brought us here today. It brought a lot of us here today. It brought us to this space, but it doesn't have to end with grief. We've heard stories today that are about loss, but they're deeper than lost. And they're about to what happened. It's about what happens when you carry too much and you don't say enough, and you are seen as everything but a human. It's everything but a human. We owe it to Kyren. We owe it to Keith. We owe it to every Black man suffering in silence to create spaces where your vulnerability is not punished. It's actually protected. And healing starts with telling the truth, man. And truth begins with conversation. We got to talk, fellas. I'm talking to all y'all. And ladies, too. We got to talk. We got to talk to each other. And we got to keep talking. And then we got to listen. We got to understand what that is. And most importantly, we just got to keep showing up. We got to show up for ourselves. We got to show up for each other. And I want us to start showing up for any and everybody who can't show up for themselves. And that's all we can do. I'll see y'all next week, man. I love y'all like I do, like I say every week. We're not here, to get rich or any of that. We're really trying to spread the message and start a revolution of healing.
That's right.
And we do that by having the conversations like this one. And I want you to, I'm challenging every single person that knows a Black man. Every person that knows a Black man, bring them back to this space so we can expand the conversation. Let's just expand it. You got a young Black man, you got an old Black man, you got a middle-aged Black man. Bring them to this space. You got Black women, bring them to the space so we can expand the conversation. All right?
It's okay not to be okay, man.
Yeah, that's right, brother. Y'all have a good night, man. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate everybody. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody.